welcome to this collector's item for any true supporter of Arsenal Football Club. It's a celebration of the great FA Cup memories from the 60s to the present day. The players and the moments that have made the FA Cup a special competition for the North London club. Tony Adams, a man who leads by example, and it's not hard to see why he is one of Arsenal's best-loved players. With his heart on his sleeve, he was the rock upon which George Graham built his defence. Later, under the tutelage of Arsene Wenger, he blossomed into one of the best defenders in the Premiership. A patriotic defender who was capped more than 60 times for England before hanging up his international boots at the turn of the century. Adams has lifted more trophies than any other skipper in Arsenal's proud history. He finally called time on his club career in 2002 after helping the Gunners secure the League and Cup double for the second time in 4 years. Nicholas Anelka arrived at Highbury ready for the 1996-97 campaign, but it was in the following season, effectively replacing Ian Wright, when the Frenchman really burst on the scene, playing a vital role in Arsenal's League and Cup double success. Despite his undoubted talent, this controversial striker has a habit of being discontent wherever he plays. Anelka moved from Arsenal to Real Madrid in 1999 for £23 million, but he failed to settle at the Bernabeu. The errant striker now appears to have settled at Manchester City after spells with both Paris Saint-Germain and Liverpool. one of the great unsung heroes of the 1971 double-winning side. But even that feat didn't do justice to George Armstrong's achievements. He made his first-team debut in 1961 and went on to set a record 621 appearances until he left for Leicester City in 1977. He scored a total of 68 goals for Arsenal and rejoined the club in 1990 to become reserve team coach. This much-loved man sadly died in 2000 after a short illness. Irrepressible redhead and a hero of England's 1966 World Cup triumph, Alan Ball, one of the world's premier midfield players. He was signed from Everton in 1971 for a then British record of £220,000. A dynamic Lancastrian, an accomplished exponent of the short passing game. He specialised in startlingly slick one-touch interchanges which demoralised defenders with speed and efficiency. His hard work and industry were also second to none. Ball was made captain in 1974 as the Arsenal side regrouped, but injuries would affect the rest of his stay in North London. Although in 5 years he never won a trophy at Highbury, he was still adored by the club's supporters. Signed from Inter Milan in the summer of 1995 for £7.5 million, Dennis Bergkamp has proven himself to be one of the best buys of all time in English football. Capable of scoring from almost any angle, he added a new dimension to the Gunners' attack upon his arrival. During the 97-98 season, Bergkamp scored 22 goals, propelling Arsenal to a magnificent League Championship and FA Cup double. He retired from international football after Euro 2000. But even a fear of flying didn't prevent this Dutchman from achieving the status of being Holland's all-time top goal scorer. Steve Bold spent 11 successful seasons at Arsenal, becoming a member of the greatest ever back four in domestic club football. Joining Arsenal from Stoke City in 1988 for a fee of £390,000, he was one of George Graham's first signings. He formed a great central defensive partnership with Tony Adams and won just about every domestic honour in the English game. In 1999, Bold left Highbury to join up with Peter Reid at Sunderland in a deal worth £500,000, and he went on to gain his coaching badges. Currently, he's working as a scout for Arsenal. One of the finest players ever to don the Arsenal jersey, Liam Brady, one of the cleverest playmakers of his generation. An uplifting talent, this Irishman showed both sublime skill and vision on the ball. An unerring accuracy with his left foot and his capacity to glide past defenders made Brady a firm favourite with the Highbury faithful. His legendary status was enhanced by Arsenal's 1979 FA Cup final triumph over Manchester United, in which he was the architect of all three Arsenal goals. He was voted Player of the Year in that campaign, and a year later was sold to Italian giants Juventus. After managing at both Celtic and Brighton and Hove Albion, he's now back at Highbury as the youth team coach. Few Arsenal forwards have promised such raw talent as Kevin Campbell. As a young player, this aggressive, muscular forward was heralded as the next Malcolm MacDonald. He broke records at youth level and blasted an incredible 94 goals in 89 games as an Arsenal reserve. He made his breakthrough into the first team in the late 80s, Campbell finally coming of age at the end of the 1990-91 season, scoring 8 goals in 10 games, helping push Arsenal to their 10th league championship. Sadly, that would be the highlight of his Highbury career. He failed to fulfil his early promise and became overshadowed by fellow striker Ian Wright. He left Arsenal in 1995, but went on to find his feet in the Premiership at Everton. Regarded by many as the top English defender of his generation, Sol Campbell completed the tricky move from Tottenham to Arsenal and as such became vilified by one half of North London. A central pillar of the England defence, Campbell has proved himself against the world's best. With his fantastic body strength on and off the ball, Campbell flourished under the leadership of Arsene Wenger. With Arsenal, he won the silverware his talents deserved. A League and FA Cup double in his first season at Highbury, just the start of a successful career. Coming through the youth ranks all the way to the first team, Ashley Cole has been a revelation for Arsenal. A series of strong performances toward the end of the 2000-2001 season saw Cole displace the impressive Silvinho from the Arsenal left-back position. He also made himself first choice in this position for England and was a mainstay of Sven-Göran Eriksson's team during the 2002 World Cup finals. Originally a striker for the youth team, Cole's the impetus for many of Arsenal's attacks. His tenacity in the tackle has become a powerful weapon in the Gunners' armoury. Lee Dixon signed for Arsenal in 1988 from Stoke City for a fee of £400,000. And for the Gunners, he's proved to be worth more than his weight in gold. Dicko made over 550 appearances for Arsenal, another member of the famous back four, the rock upon which so much of the club's success has been built over the last 15 years. He was capped by England 22 times and won just about every honour in the game. When Edu arrived at Highbury in January 2001, he became only the second Brazilian to play for the illustrious North London club. Arsene Wenger made the Samba star a £6 million signing from Corinthians, linking Edu with his fellow countryman and former teammate, Silvinho. This versatile midfielder has been a welcome addition to the Arsenal squad. In his first full season at Highbury, the Brazilian helped Arsenal to their second League and Cup double under Wenger. Edu also has the knack of netting important goals. His strike against Manchester United, a pivotal moment in Arsenal's victorious 2003 FA Cup campaign. Many young lads dream of scoring the winner for their favourite team in the FA Cup final. Charlie George did just that at the tender age of 20 against Liverpool in 1971, in what still remains as one of the most memorable moments in the history of the competition. From there on, Charlie became not just an Arsenal legend, but an icon of the 70s, taking over the mantle from George Best, inspiring many a haircut and pop record. 3 years later, George put in a transfer request and moved to Derby County. Spells at Southampton, Nottingham Forest and Bournemouth followed, but he'll forever be remembered as a Gooner. man who'd later become the most successful Arsenal manager since Herbert Chapman, was a key member of the double-winning side of 1971. Nicknamed Stroller for the way he seemed to effortlessly glide through matches, George Graham brought style to a side often accused of negativity. His playing career would never hit the same peaks after leaving Highbury, despite at one time captaining Manchester United. On his return as manager in 1986, he revitalised Arsenal, yet he's often remembered for his acrimonious departure after investigations into transfer irregularities. He then made the controversial step, becoming manager of bitter rivals Tottenham Hotspur. Arsène Wenger returned to his former club Monaco looking for a utility player. Gilles Grimondi's bursts of activity, gritty style and determination made him an asset to the side. Helping the team out of tricky situations, this unsung hero ably managed midfield or defensive positions, his ability to play with either foot adding to his versatility. A key member of two double-winning sides, Grimondi fully deserved the medals he received with Arsenal. Strong, bullish and powerful, John Hartson's the kind of forward defenders hate dealing with. He isn't just muscle though. Finesse and subtlety lie deceptively under this stocky frame. George Graham could see all the potential and spent £2.5 million on the 19-year-old Luton Town player. As the most expensive British teenager in the game, Hartson initially struggled to meet such high expectations. Often isolated up front, he had difficulties in his first season settling at Arsenal. The fans loved his style though, and they were surprised when the club sold him 2 years later to local rivals West Ham for £3.3 million. Since his move to Highbury when he was brought in to replace departing fellow countryman Nicolas Anelka, Thierry Henry has become a prolific striker and Arsenal's leading scorer for the past 3 seasons. He has incredible pace and can still play either as a winger or out-and-out striker. Henry has become one of French football's hottest properties, the spearhead of the French attack in their triumphant Euro 2000 championship-winning side and a part of their 1998 World Cup winning team. Henry's love of the spectacular has made him a crowd favourite at Highbury and elsewhere. And it was no surprise when he was nominated Players' Player and Football Writers' Player of the Year in 2003. Great things were expected of Francis Jeffers when he arrived at Highbury as an £8 million buy from Everton, and the young Merseysider has not disappointed. Despite being limited to few first-team appearances, he still made a telling contribution to Arsenal's success since signing in June 2001. When he's been given his chance in the starting 11, he hasn't disappointed. He scored twice in his first 3 starts. Since joining Arsenal, Jeffers has also burst onto the international scene, opening his England account with a strike against Australia on his full England debut. The current incumbent of the coveted Arsenal number 9 shirt has a bright future. It was thought Pat Jennings was nearing the end of his career when he signed for Arsenal from Tottenham Hotspur in the summer of 1977, but the big Irishman went on to play for another 8 seasons at Highbury. Jennings was just as effective at Arsenal as he had been on the other side of North London. Calm and quiet, but a reassuring influence to any defence in front of him. His incomparable positional sense, coupled with his judgment in one-on-one situations, made him one of the greatest goalkeepers of his generation. He was still playing at 40 years of age in the 1986 World Cup, where he added to a record haul of 119 caps for Northern Ireland. Nigerian international Nwankwo Kanu joined Arsenal midway through the 1998-99 season, having already won the Champions League with Ajax, the African Cup of Nations with Nigeria, and the accolade of African Player of the Year. He moved to Arsenal from Inter Milan, where a serious heart condition had placed his career in jeopardy. Following lengthy treatment and rehabilitation, he made a full recovery, and he became an instant favourite with the fans. Deceptively skillful on the ball for such a big man, Kanu is at his best with his back to goal. Arguably one of the best all-round midfielders of the 1970s, Ray Kennedy went on to achieve consistent success at Liverpool after leaving Arsenal in 1974. He scored the goal away to arch-rivals Tottenham to clinch the league championship and complete the first leg of Arsenal's 1971 domestic double. With his fabulous first touch and his close control, Kennedy was difficult to knock off the ball, and he was known for his ability to ride tackles. In 212 appearances for the Gunners, he netted an impressive 71 goals, a striker who was later converted into one of the classiest midfielders of his generation. This versatile Cameroon midfield player joined Arsenal from Real Mallorca in the summer of 2000 and scored on his league debut against Liverpool. As comfortable in defence as he is in midfield, Lauren has now established himself at right back, a ready-made replacement for veteran fullback Lee Dixon. At national level, Lauren has won both the 2000 African Nations Cup and an Olympic gold medal. The arrival in 1990 of an unknown Swedish winger from Italian club Cremonese hardly sent a wave of excitement around Highbury. A year later, every Gunners fan knew about Anders Limpar as he inspired them to their second title in 3 seasons. Operating from the left wing position, Limpar possessed both speed and skill. Dynamic on his day, he captivated the Highbury faithful, not only scoring crucial goals, but making many, often out of nothing. In 1994, and after nearly 4 years and 95 appearances for the club, Limpar left Arsenal to join Everton. Andy Linnigan arrived at Highbury in July 1990 as a £1.2 million signing from Norwich City. He commanded many of the attributes of a top centre-half: courageous, skillful and powerful in the air. Unfortunately, the dominance of Steve Bold and Tony Adams at the heart of the Arsenal defence limited his opportunities to impress in the starting 11. But Linnigan will always have a place in Highbury folklore thanks to his last gasp winner in Arsenal's FA Cup final replay win against Sheffield Wednesday. The goal, a typically brave header at the end of extra time, and it remains the high point of his Arsenal career. The colourful Swedish international Freddie Ljungberg, one of Arsene Wenger's biggest success stories. He joined Arsenal from Halmstad in 1998 and proved himself a versatile midfielder capable of fitting in anywhere across the middle of the park, even at times as a centre-forward. His recent form has shown him to be as adept at finding the back of the net as any Arsenal player. Ljungberg is one of Arsenal's most energetic stars, and his spectacular strike in the 2002 FA Cup final put him on his way to becoming a Highbury legend. Malcolm MacDonald became new manager Terry Neal's flagship signing when joining the Gunners in 1976 from Newcastle United, and he didn't disappoint. amassing 29 goals in his first season at Arsenal. He had a game that could draw on both pace and power, and was renowned for his sledgehammer left foot. Although only 5'8" tall, MacDonald was also majestic in the air, often outclimbing much bigger men. His Arsenal career was cut agonisingly short when an arthritic knee forced him to hang up his boots after just 2 seasons at the North London club. Having lost in 2 FA Cup finals for Leicester City in 1961 and 1963, Frank McClintock eventually tasted success after moving to Highbury in '64 for a then British record transfer fee of £80,000. After winning the 1970 Fairs Cup, he captained Arsenal to the League and Cup double in 70-71, subsequently becoming Player of the Year. With 472 appearances for the Gunners, McClintock is simply a Highbury legend. Paul Merson's career was hampered by his controversial lifestyle and much publicised social life. But on his day, he's always been an incredible talent. During his 12-year stay at Arsenal, Merson picked up a Championship medal, an FA Cup Winners' medal, and a European Cup Winners' Cup medal. He reluctantly left Arsenal in 1997 for Middlesbrough, later moving on to Aston Villa, before settling at Portsmouth, where his popularity has continued to grow after helping the South Coast club to gain promotion to the Premiership. David O'Leary signed for Arsenal on his 15th birthday in May 1973 and went on to spend over 20 years with the club. He made 558 appearances as a commanding central defender, helping his team win the Championship, the FA Cup and the League Cup along the way. O'Leary also played a key role for the Republic of Ireland, scoring the decisive penalty against Romania to send them through to the quarter-finals at Italia 90. After retiring as a player, O'Leary steered Leeds United to the semi-finals of the Champions League before taking charge of Premiership rivals Aston Villa. Unveiled at Highbury in 1997 on the same day as Emmanuel Petit, Marc Overmars was one of Arsene Wenger's earliest signings and proved a revelation. His trademark pace down the left wing made him an instant favourite with the Highbury crowd, and his skill on the ball, combined with confidence in front of goal, ensured that he'll be remembered as one of Arsenal's best ever wingers. In 2000, Overmars was sold to Barcelona in a deal valued in total at £25 million. Arsenal were reluctant to see him go, but the offer was simply too good to turn down. Of Arsenal's multinational squad lies Englishman Ray Parlour. Committed and dedicated to the Highbury cause, Parlour is a crowd favourite and a manager's dream. Since a 1992 debut, he's chalked up 366 appearances, winning various League and Cup medals along the way. While never the most high-profile player in the squad, he's rarely overshadowed on the pitch. Known for his industry, Parlour can also be devastating in attack and possesses a fine long-range shot. 12 years since his debut, no wonder the Gooners still adore the man they call the Romford Pele. Competitive and cultured midfielder signed by Arsene Wenger from Monaco in 1997, Emmanuel Petit quickly found his feet in the Premiership. His midfield displays alongside Patrick Vieira in Arsenal's double-winning season were impeccable, a combination of style and steel in the centre of the park. A regular in the French national side with over 40 caps since his debut in 1990, he was a goal scorer in the World Cup final in 1998. After a brief spell at Barcelona, Petit returned to England to play for London rivals Chelsea. Robert Pires was out of favour at French club Marseille when Arsene Wenger came to his rescue. It took £6 million to bring him to North London, and it seems money well spent. Despite taking a little while to adapt to the style of English football, the Frenchman soon mesmerised the Highbury faithful, and in his second season, he became the Football Writers' Player of the Year, scoring 13 goals from midfield. A World Cup and European Championship winner, Pires overcame the odds to recover from a career-threatening knee ligament injury and was soon back to his best. firmly establishing himself as one of Arsenal's brightest stars. As a world-class midfielder, David Platt was a big signing for Arsenal. In 1995, Bruce Rioch spent £4.5 million on the England star, bringing him from Sampdoria to the capital. The Gooners knew all about Platt, a versatile midfield player, blessed with impeccable timing and a clinical finish. He had played against Arsenal while at Aston Villa. Injury-prone in his first season at Highbury, the fans had to wait for Platt to make an impact, but it did come the following campaign, and it climaxed in 1997-98. Towering performances and a memorable winning goal against Manchester United sealed his place in the fans' hearts. After retirement, Platt took his expertise on the pitch into management, first at Nottingham Forest and then with the England under-21 team. Making his first-team debut in 1963, having signed as an apprentice a year earlier, Yorkshire-born John Radford had a distinguished career at Highbury, which lasted until 1977. He was a key member of the 1970-71 double-winning side and scored a total of 149 goals in all competitions for the first team. Radford was idolised by the fans on the North Bank to such an extent that he was named Arsenal's Player of the Year on 2 occasions, in 1968 and 1973. Rice made his Arsenal first-team debut in 1967, aged 18 years and 1 month. 4 years later, he was riding the crest of a wave as a member of the famous double-winning team. As one of the finest right-backs the club has ever seen, he made 521 senior appearances in all competitions, as well as pulling on the Northern Ireland jersey 49 times. He moved on to Watford in 1980 and ended his playing career 4 years later. But in 1998, he won his second double with Arsenal, this time as a valuable member of Arsene Wenger's coaching team, where he remains to this day. A gifted performer with an abundance of natural talent, Graham Rix's left foot was one of the most famous in the English game. He was of slim build, and there were those who didn't think he'd make it in the professional ranks, but there was a deceptive resilience about that slender frame. He was a beautiful passer who controlled the ball smoothly. He had the knack of drifting past his marker, and he had a keen eye for goal. In 446 games for the Gunners, he scored 51 goals, as well as winning 17 England caps. When Liam Brady left for Serie A, Rix found himself as Arsenal's playmaker-in-chief, a role he revelled in. Affectionately known as Rocky, David Rocastle was a crowd favourite in Arsenal's successes of the late 80s and early 90s. As a homegrown star under the guidance of George Graham, the fans saw him as one of their own and quickly warmed to his physical yet creative role in the team. After claiming 14 caps for England, worries about his fitness led to a transfer to then-champions Leeds United, but he never reached the heights he set for himself at Highbury. Tragically, Rocastle died of cancer in 2001, prompting many to remember the skills that made him one of the best young players of his generation. Kenny Sansom left Crystal Palace for Arsenal in 1980 in a controversial swap deal with Clive Allen, yet went on to become the club's first-choice left-back for the next 8 years, making 314 appearances in Arsenal colours, winning 86 caps for England. His combative yet skillful approach made him a firm favourite with the North Bank, and he was frequently the impetus for Arsenal attacks with his direct and quick passing skills. In 1987, Sansom captained Arsenal as they lifted the Littlewoods Cup. Sometimes managers have to make unpopular decisions. That was the case for George Graham when he let John Lukic join Leeds and replace him with a young keeper from QPR called David Seaman. He cost just £1.3 million, but Seaman proved an absolute bargain. He would win 3 league titles and 4 FA Cup winners' medals as Arsenal embarked on one of the most successful periods in the club's history. Consistent to the end, Seaman served the Gunners for 13 years. Fittingly, his last match in goal for the club was the 2003 FA Cup final. Seaman kept a clean sheet and as captain lifted the trophy. It was quite a coup for Arsenal to secure the services of a Brazilian left-back. Arriving in the summer of 1999 as a long-term replacement for Nigel Winterburn, Silvinho was quick to impress. Never afraid to go forward and equally comfortable in midfield, Silvers scored some spectacular goals and added a little bit of South American flair to so-called boring Arsenal. He wasn't the biggest of defenders, but his close control and pace made him a valuable asset to the side. Few expected the emergence of a bright young British talent, Ashley Cole, would eventually force him out of the Arsenal side. promise that Alan Smith showed at Leicester as a youngster was always going to pay dividends at some point for a bigger club, and it was at Arsenal that he came up trumps. He arrived in 1987, and Smith was the archetypal centre-forward for George Graham's team, acting as the perfect target man with a deadly eye for goal. He worked well with the movement around him from homegrown youngsters, and his goals helped Arsenal to 2 championships, 2 League Cups and the FA Cup. His single greatest moment, though, was the fine volley that won the 1994 Cup Winners' Cup final against Parma in Copenhagen. Scorer of 20 international goals for the Republic of Ireland, a one-time record, Frank Stapleton was most noted for his aerial prowess. In 7 years at Arsenal, Stapleton netted over 100 goals. As well as being a deadly finisher with his head, he could also score with either foot. And although his scoring record at Arsenal was steady rather than prolific, he compensated admirably by laying on untold chances for strike partners. Stapleton played in 3 FA Cup finals with Arsenal, scoring in the solitary triumph in 1979. He moved to Manchester United in 1981, and 2 years later, he helped his new club to FA Cup success. Croatian strike sensation Davor Šuker joined Arsenal in time for the start of the 1999-2000 season. He arrived with a reputation as one of the finest strikers in Europe. Already a European Cup winner with Real Madrid, he'd shown he could perform at the highest level when finishing top scorer at the 1998 World Cup in France. At Arsenal, however, he was unable to add to his haul of silverware. Despite making it to the final of the UEFA Cup, Arsenal failed to clinch the trophy, losing to Galatasaray. He stayed only 1 season at Highbury before leaving for city rivals West Ham United. The 1979 FA Cup final provides Alan Sunderland's greatest moment, as he struck a last-minute winner against Manchester United in what will always be remembered as the 5-minute cup final. Signed from Wolves in 1977, Sunderland struck up an impressive striking partnership with Frank Stapleton. In 1978, he won the heart of every Arsenal fan by scoring a hat-trick in a 5-0 thrashing of rivals Tottenham Hotspur. Ironically, it was a performance against Arsenal which earned Brian Talbot his move to Highbury. The Gunners signed the midfielder after a match-winning display in the 1978 FA Cup final for Ipswich Town. A year later, he was back at Wembley for a second successive final appearance, this time for the Gunners. Talbot opened the scoring as Arsenal beat Manchester United in that thriller. His wholehearted and industrious approach won him many fans during 300 appearances for Arsenal. His intelligence on the pitch was matched off it, and it was no surprise when he moved into management. Patrick Vieira was signed by Arsene Wenger in August 1996 from AC Milan for £3.5 million, and he's gone on to become one of the best all-round midfielders in the Premiership. A World Cup winner with France in 1998, Vieira played a prominent role in securing the Championship and FA Cup for Arsenal in the same year. Together with countryman Emmanuel Petit, Vieira formed a combative midfield partnership that won them both the accolade of a place in the PFA's Premiership side for 98-99. A passionate player, his rash actions on the pitch have sometimes cost him dearly. But when he keeps his fiery temper, he's arguably become the world's finest midfielder. Another of the French Foreign Legion at Highbury, Sylvain Villetor's biggest asset is his blistering pace. The French flyer uses his speed to good effect as a central target man and has proven his ability at the highest level with a last-minute equaliser at the final of Euro 2000. And important goals have become a trademark of his at club level too, often coming on as a substitute to turn a match in Arsenal's favour. It did take time for Villetor to justify his £12 million transfer fee to the fans, but in his second season with the Gunners he scored 17 goals, appearing in the starting lineup with regularity. Used by Wenger in a variety of positions, Villetor is as happy on the right wing as he is in a central striker's role. Without doubt, one of the most popular players Arsenal Football Club has ever seen, Nigel Winterburn was a crowd favourite for over 13 years. His contribution to the club's success during the George Graham era and beyond was immeasurable. Despite being one of the most consistent defenders in England over that period, sadly he was a player almost constantly overlooked by international managers. After 13 years of dedicated service at Highbury, Winterburn signed for West Ham in 2000 and still receives a hero's welcome every time the clubs meet. Despite arriving in professional football at the ripe old age of 24, Ian Wright was an instant hit following his arrival from Crystal Palace in 1991. After scoring on his debut at Leicester in the Rumbelows Cup, he went on to break Cliff Bastin's 50-year-old all-time Arsenal goal-scoring record with a hat-trick against Bolton Wanderers in 1997, eventually finishing on 185 goals. His final season at Arsenal saw them win the League and Cup double in 97-98 before he moved on to play for West Ham United. He retired from the game in 2000 to concentrate more closely on his career in television. He was awarded an MBE the same year for his services to football.
Willie Young was an unlikely Highbury hero. The Scottish defender joined the Gunners in 1977 from North London rivals Tottenham. He formed a strong central defensive partnership with David O'Leary, and the two helped Arsenal reach 3 successive FA Cup finals between 1978 and 1980. Physical rather than technical, Young was a defender from the old school. An outspoken individual, the Scotsman's committed approach saw him make 236 appearances for the club. With hair as red as his Arsenal jersey, the club lost a colourful and wholehearted character when Young left Highbury in 1982. So a lineup to grace the FA Cup or any other competition. Men who have helped to create the legend of Arsenal. We hope you have enjoyed it. From me, Paul Dempsey, it's goodbye.
Butterfield, τι θα το παίξουμε?
Μισό λεπτό. Αυτό είναι στάνταρ. Ριχάινε μπείτε, ριχάινε βγείτε. Μήπως έχεις κάποια πρόβλεψη?
Ναι, αυτό ας το παίξουμε καλύτερα ένα-δύο, όχι τριπλή ευκαιρία να είμαστε σίγουροι. Ας τον Βίλα, ας τον Βόλου μου, λες, το παίζουμε.
Σύμφωνα με αυτά που βλέπω εδώ, ο αγώνας αυτός δεν πρόκειται να γίνει καν. Η Άστον Βίλα ερωτεύεται τον Άστον Βόλου και κλέβονται.
Εσύ, μήπως ασχολούμαστε με βλακιές?
Εφημερίδα Γκολ. Καθημερινό γκολ στην αθλητική ενημέρωση και στο στοίχημα.